Good morning! Welcome to Board Game Barrister, our local game shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's Tuesday once again, and every Tuesday we get to play a game, and we have just returned from Middle-earth, because today we played the first chapter of the Lord of the Rings adventure book game. In this game, you're playing through 8 chapters that represent the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. We played through the first one, where we're playing as characters trying to accomplish objectives and further the story as we go. See how that works in just a second here, but I'm with my fellow barristers, Elizabeth, Ian, and Gordon, and before we get into our game and everything we liked about it, we're going to talk about how to play.
Are you okay?
That hurt.
Welcome to the Lord of the Rings adventure book game, where we're going to play through the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy over 8 chapters, each represented by one of these page spreads in the book. I've got us set up for chapter 1 here, the adventure begins, and let's go over the really basic mechanics of this game. Each chapter is going to give us a setup on the side here, as well as some special rules, and the setup's going to be basically which characters start in which positions. We've got all of our hobbits out here to start. We've got 2 black riders circling the forest trying to catch us, and then we've got Gandalf coming on into the Shire here. The black riders have their own little special rule about how they have to move clockwise along this shadowy path trying to find us. And once we're set up for each scenario, we're going to take a look at these challenges we're trying to complete, which are basically the main story beats in that part of the Lord of the Rings story. Here we have Keep It Secret, Keep It Safe, where we're trying to get Gandalf and Frodo together at the hearth in Bag End. We have It Comes in Pints, which is us getting all of our hobbits to Bree so that they can meet Aragorn and he'll pop into the game once we've done that. And we finish this chapter with We Do Not Stop Till Nightfall, which is the big confrontation on Weathertop. We've got to get Aragorn and a bunch of the hobbits up to Weathertop with the Black Riders confronting them there. All of that information just lives on the side panels of each of the chapters, and then the game itself has some basic mechanics that we're going to be using to accomplish those challenges. So on each player's turn, they're just going to take a look at their reference card, which tells them the main steps they can do on their turn if they want to. Those steps start with a free move, so they can move any character up to 2 spaces, or they can move 2 separate characters 1 space each. And movement is a big part of this game because most of the challenges we're trying to accomplish require that we have different characters in different places based on that story point. So where we're starting out by trying to get Gandalf and Frodo to Bag End, maybe I would move Frodo 1 space, and then for my second move Gandalf over to where Frodo had just been. Next up is the storytelling phase in your turn, and this is where you're going to interact with all the cards in your hand. Each player is going to start the chapter with a hand of cards, and we're going to use those to do various things now. You can just discard cards to keep moving characters places if you'd like to, so I could discard this adventure card, doesn't matter which one I discard, but I could discard this adventure card to move Gandalf right on into that hearth we're trying to get him into. I can also trade cards with other players, and this is usually most relevant when we're looking at the card requirements for each of those challenges. You can see here along my challenges panel that there are little requirement symbols under the image for each of those different challenges. So in order to complete this first challenge, the player who gets all the characters into the right places and all the pieces in position is also going to have to discard all the symbols shown from their hand, so they have to have them all available. This one requires 1 insight card to be discarded, so maybe when I'm trading, I'm going to see, okay, whoever thinks they can get Sam into the Road to the Shire, which is the final part of this challenge, do you need an insight card? Because I've got one in my hand, I could trade you. And this storytelling phase of my turn is also where I would complete a challenge. So if I had everything in position and had the cards I needed to discard to complete it, I could complete that challenge now. That's it for the main part of my turn, so I finish up by drawing 2 cards from the story deck, and then drawing a plot card from the plot deck, and each of these plot cards has got a number between 1 and 15 that is going to trigger a certain effect depending on which chapter we're playing. You can see I've got my little chapter 1 plot card here that tells me that on an 11, I'm going to move either of the Black Riders 2 spaces. I don't really want to block Frodo and Sam into the Shire, so maybe I'm going to move this one here and hope he gets out of the way before we get everyone into Bree in the next challenge. The one other type of card we're going to see come up in our hand kind of often actually is going to be the influence of the One Ring. Every time somebody plays one of these, whether it's to move a character or whatever else, we're going to move our corruption track up 1 spot. And the trick with corruption is that it never goes away between chapters. So after we're done with our first chapter here, as we move into chapter 2, we're going to maintain the same corruption track, and we never want this corruption to get to 15 or we lose the game in its entirety. So we're going to keep taking turns, trying to make sure we're setting each other up to complete challenges as we go, and each chapter is going to end in one of 2 ways. We have our main loss conditions over here in our main chapter info panel that say you lose this chapter if there is more than 1 hobbit in the hiding spot, and a lot of the plot cards put hobbits into the hiding spot. We can also put them there ourselves, so it's pretty risky to hide them though. Or if the plot deck runs out, so if it takes us more than 15 turns to get this done, we lose. Additionally, if the corruption track would be to reach 15 in this first chapter, we would lose, but that's pretty unlikely. And we win each chapter if we complete the final challenge, and each of those challenges is actually going to just say you complete this chapter as the reward for completing it. Well, there you have it, a very brief overview of the first chapter and how to play the basics of the game. Those basics won't change, but of course as you move into further chapters, a lot of the gameplay is going to change. There's going to be special rules, additional characters are going to show up, all sort of crazy stuff, so the game keeps growing and becoming more fun to explore as you make your way through.
So, I grew up with The Lord of the Rings. It came out when I was in middle school and high school, and it's a huge nostalgia thing for me and my friends and everybody that I play games with. It's kind of like an icon from my childhood, and that's what I think I like the most about this game, is that it directly references all of those cool nostalgic things that I remember seeing for the first time ever in the theaters. So for me, it's a big deal to be able to play through each one of those and then talk about your enjoyment of when the first time you saw those things and the different background that you have with it is what I really like, is it really brings you back to that time when you got to experience those things with your friends for the first time.
Oh, I got Galadriel's hair.
Oh, it's Gimli.
She gave me 3.
I asked for 1 hair from her golden head. She gave me 3.
The mechanics of the game are, nice and light. You collect the card, you play the card, you have to have the right card at the right time. So it's about sequencing your turn, but we're all doing it cooperatively. So there's plenty of time to sit and, josh about the favorite part of the film or put in notes about the book in between playing these cards and doing your turns. Like, it's not so mechanically heavy that I'm trying to strategize. I'm like, stop distracting me. We're having fun.
Yep.
And I like that there's no surprises, really, right? We know what the story is. We know what story beats we have to hit. And like any good story, even that you're seeing for the first time, and they'll show you the end of the story. And like, we know what the end of the story is. But it's always, how do you get there, right? And so the real fun of this game is, how do we get to the spot that we know that we need to get to? And what's cool about this is that not only do you have that in the chapters, but you have each of those little goals in the chapters, and they're lined up in such a way that, like, you really kind of want to do them in order, right? And you know what you need to do, but the act of getting there, it's like, oh, there's a struggle, but the actual gameplay is light enough that it gets out of the way, so you really get to relive those experiences that you know and love.
And I think perhaps the coolest thing about this game, just as, the entirety of the game in a box, is that people have tried to do, and it's succeeded at doing, like, all of Lord of the Rings in one box style games before. You're going to play through the entire series, you're going to fight orcs and goblins all the way through, you're going to have cool miniatures, but not in a form factor that was approachable at all to, like, families who don't have a ton of time, to kids, and stuff like that. Anybody could play through this game in probably a total. You could get through all the chapters of this game in under 5 hours, and you could keep coming back to it as you are playing through the story. But it all comes in one box. It takes 15 minutes to learn how to do the base rules, and it goes through the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy with a ton of content packed into it. Like, they hit all the really cool key moments with beautiful little art for each of them to make you feel like you're going through it. So the fact that they pulled off actually getting the entire trilogy into this not enormous box that you can learn quick is amazing.
And speaking of that, I mean, the components themselves are really neat. Like the miniatures, we played with all 4 of the hobbits and Aragorn in this one, and all of them just look excellent. Like, they really, really look like the characters from the movie, and they're phenomenal, and they're all unique in their own little way. And we didn't even get to play with Gimli and Legolas yet, and they're really nice components. And of course, the artwork, like Andy said, on the story beats and on the maps are just phenomenal. We looked forward ahead at some of the other ones, and they're all really, really well done.
This is the least complicated of the boards that we're on. And we flipped ahead and looked at it, like, these look so cool, like, we want to play these. And, the box tells you 20 minutes per chapter. That's probably accurate if all you're doing is playing the game. But there's so much. I mean, this is an experience where you're going to sit and you're going to relive, and, and it's just all about talking about all the, Lord of the Rings stuff that you love.
And the last thing I'll say about this one is that, unlike many games that have a player count that goes from 1 player all the way up to more players, so they have a kind of a solo mode that is potential that you could play 1 player, I actually feel excited to play this one player. A solo game to land that perfect sweet spot is pretty tough for me, and this one lands exactly there. There's a ton to explore. It's going to keep shifting and changing kind of what you're trying to accomplish each game and what the special rules are and your special objectives are, but you also could pull it out and be playing within like 5 minutes of pulling it out of the box each time. So I already want to play through all 8 chapters of this, with other people or solo, because it was really fun to play with other people as well. All right, that was the Lord of the Rings adventure book game. Thank you so much for watching. We had a fantastic time with Chapter 1. We're going to have to move on from there, and we hope you had fun watching. As always, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see our videos every single week when we post them, leave a comment if you got a comment, and check out our online store. Of course, Lord of the Rings adventure book game is in there, along with a bunch of other cool stuff. Thanks for watching this week, and we will see you next time.